Hi everyone, we're going to continue reading. The next chapter is Story Part 2. Some of you got to hear this in class. There are a couple classes that didn't, so I'm going to read through Story Part 2. And then if you have listened to it, you can go straight to the next one, which is called Back into the Woods. If you didn't listen to this chapter, you need to listen to this one and then go to the next story, Back into the Woods. At the end, after you've listened to the videos or the recordings, there are 2 questions for you to answer. And again, click on that exit ticket link, and that'll take you to our discussion forum about the book. All right, I'm going to get started. Remember, we just heard Wobb's coming to story and how she got the scar. Story Part 2 is Mig talking right after she shared this story. This time, Mig picked up where he'd left off the night that Rose first arrived. The earth was broken, too much taking for too long, so she finally broke. But she went out like a wild horse, bucking off as much as she could before lying down. A melting north meant the water levels rose and the weather changed. It changed to violence in some cases, building tsunamis, spinning tornadoes, crumbling earthquakes, and the shapes of countries were changed forever. Whole coasts breaking off like crust. And all those pipelines in the ground, they snapped like icicles and spewed all over the forests into lakes, drowning whole reserves and towns. So much laid to waste from the miscalculation of infallibility in the face of a planet's revolt. People died in the millions when that happened. The ones that were left had to migrate inward. It was like the second coming of the boats, so many sick people, and not enough time to organize peacefully. But the powers that be still refused to change, and then the already stooped under the whips of a schedule made for a population twice its size and inflated by the need to rebuild. Those that were left worked longer, worked harder, and now the sun was gone for weeks at a time. The suburban structure of their lives had been upended, and so they got sicker, this time in the head. They stopped dreaming, and a man without dreams is just a meaty machine with a broken gauge. People lost their minds, killing themselves and others, and even worse, they needed answers, solutions. So up here, the governors turned to the scientists to find a cure for the missing dreams. In the meantime, those who could afford it turned to sleep counselors, took pills to go to bed and pills to wake up, and did things like group hypnosis to implant new dreams. At first, people turned to indigenous people, the way the New Agers had, all reverence and curiosity, looking for ways we could help guide them. They asked to come to ceremony. They humbled themselves when we refused, and then they changed on us, like the New Agers, looking for ways they could take what we had and administer it themselves. How could they best appropriate the uncanny ability we kept to dream? How could they make ceremony better, more efficient, more economical? So remember that this is all about appropriation. That's taking something that belongs to someone else and trying to fit it into your space to fit for you and take like ownership of it. But it doesn't work because this isn't their culture. This is the indigenous people's culture. And so it doesn't work the way they want it to. Part of the beauty of their ceremony is not the efficiency, not the economical function of it. It's just that it is. Some things can't be done better. Some things are good already the way they are. So that's kind of what he's trying to say that. That was the first alarm set off in the communities. We thought that was the worst of it, if only. We were moved off land that was deemed necessary to the government, same way they took reserve land during wartime. Because no one cared about long-range things, like courting votes for the next election, and instead cared about things like keeping valued, wealthy community members safe. There were no negotiations. We were just pushed off. And then, even after our way of life was being taken, after our lands were filled with the water companies and wealthy corporate investors, we were still hopeful, because we had each other. New communities started to form, and we were gathering strength. But then the scientists that were working day and night on the dream problem came up with their own solution, and everything got messed up. They asked for volunteers first, put out ads asking for people with indigenous bloodlines and good general health, to check in with local clinics for medical trials. They'd give you room and board for a week and a small pay for your time of work. By then, our distress had grown stronger, and they didn't get many volunteers from the public, so they turned to the prisons. The prisons were always full of people. There weren't enough people worried about the well-being of prisoners to really make sure. It began as a rumor that they had found a way to siphon the dreams right out of our bones, a rumor whispered every time one of us went missing. A rumor denounced every time their doctors sent us to hospitals and treatment centers never to return. They kept sending us away, enticing us to seek medical care, and then keeping us locked up, figuring out ways to hone and perfect their solution for sale. Soon they needed too many of us, and they turned to history to show them how to best keep us warehoused, how to best position the culling. That's when the new residential schools started growing up from the dirt like poisonous brick mushrooms. We go to the schools, and they leach the dreams from where our ancestors hid them, and the honeycombs of slushy marrow buried in our bones. And us? Well, we join our ancestors, hoping we left enough dreams behind for the next generation to stumble across. So that's the end of that chapter. It's pretty short. But that last line, the next generation, is really important to the Native American culture, and being able to cultivate that generation and share the dreams, the stories, this oral history with them. That's something I noticed, and I think the author wants me to know. So that's all for story part 2. You can go on to Back into the Woods, and then after that chapter, don't forget to answer the 2 questions. All right, talk to you later.